Okay, hi everybody. We have another special edition with Rich Londraville here with us this evening because he has nothing better to do with his evenings as well. Thank you, Rich, for being here. I wanted to have this emergency Tony's take to talk a little bit about some of the feedback we've been getting both in the surveys we've been giving out, as well as even in the meetings we've been having with our liaisons and just emails we've been getting about our, as in the collective bargaining unit or the buff, the bargaining unit faculty, our kind of position with financials. We've heard time and time again that, we haven't taken our cut. We haven't given anything. We've not made any concessions. And now all of a sudden we're even talking about getting more money with this distance learning article, this article 20 that we've been talking a little bit about. Can you just kind of talk me through that, talk us through, like, how do you still see that as a way to be pro university?
Sure. First, I'd like to say, that we really appreciate getting the feedback from the faculty. We need to hear the good and the bad, because at the end of this thing, we're going to have a ratification vote. Hopefully just a ratification vote, or we're going to strike, or both. And we need to know what you're thinking. So the good and the bad, we appreciate that. So this is my view, and I think the NT shares this view, and you as a member of the NT can tell me if you agree. So the overall goal is to negotiate an agreement that works for the university, works for the chapter. So it's overall good, in quotes, right? So what are the elements that I consider, or we consider, good? I consider good means that if you work hard, you want to stay here. I think good means that when we get to the position of being able to hire people, people are going to want to come here. And ultimately, and the most important, is good means that we can deliver on the education that we know how to do. So how we know we can teach, how we know we can provide services for our students, educate our students, that we have the terms and conditions that allow us to do that. That's what I consider good. And that's the goal. So that's complex. That's a nice idea. And, that would be a nice bumper sticker, but how do you get there?
It's the operationalization of it that there seems to be some discrepancy about.
Yeah. So how I think about it is I think we need some kind of stability. So there's been a lot of turmoil, and I think we need long-term stability, more than a year stability. By stability, I mean you're not worried about your job. You're not worried if you're going to have health care. You're not worried that you're not going to have any say about how things are decided at the university, if your program is cut or not. Those sorts of things that we need for stability. And this is where I'm trying to remember what it was like before I was on the negotiating team, because it seems like that's my whole life. But I definitely paid attention to negotiations in the past. And I definitely had an opinion along the lines of, well, why don't they just trade this for this? Or why doesn't this happen? And then we got into negotiations, and it's like, okay, that was wrong, because that's just not how things happen.
It's crazy.
It's not, we never have a conversation of, we want this, you guys want this, let's meet in the middle. It just doesn't happen that way.
It
And
does not.
it happens more as we're talking about a package of things that each side wants. And what is a package of things that each side could live with? We are not even there yet, but that's how we are framing the argument. Both sides are framing it that way. So in that package of things, that includes economic things and non-economic things. So the Article 20 distance education thing that you're wondering about, how does that fit into the package? I think most of us would agree that we're working harder as a result of the pandemic.
And we have data to support that for sure.
Yeah, almost all of us are delivering a course online that had to be developed new to do that. almost all of us are feeling the effects of missing faculty members because of the RIF. These are a significant addition to what we already are doing. There is a article in the contract that did not consider a pandemic, and that is Article 20, that recognized that if you have to do that sort of thing, that's a significant effort. So that was arrived at through collective bargaining, and said, if we want you to put together an online course, and the university had reasons that they wanted us to do that, we're going to pay you for that. And we're also going to give you extra load for the first time you teach that, because it's a significant effort. In trying to make this holistic package of a good agreement, we have to think about all the things that the university is asking of the faculty, and that's one of those things. There's been significant wage cuts proposed. There's been significant changes to retiree benefits. And by significant, I mean literally millions of dollars that we're talking about.
Retiree dependent benefits, is that
Correct.
correct?
Yeah, so it's a benefit to the retiree for their dependents.
For their dependents, right, okay.
There's also significant changes in life insurance benefits for some retirees. There's been a significant increase in workload due to the online thing that we're talking about, and due to losing 20% of our faculty in the RIF. And of course, there's been significant layoffs. So these are all things that are proposed by the administration for the faculty, or imposed by the administration. That's a lot of things, right? We want some recognition of what those mean for the faculty, and what that means for the bottom line being delivering a good education for our students, and putting together a program for our students that means a meaningful degree when they get out of here. All those things, when you add up all those things, they impact that thing, being able to do a good job for our students. And so it's really hard to extricate 12% cut in salary from that, or we're not going to compensate you for the extra effort it takes to develop an online class and teach an online class, even though that's in the contract. They were asking for increases in our contribution to what we pay toward benefits. That's now off the table because of a technicality with open enrollment, but that was also on the table. A lot of people don't think about retirees because they aren't one yet, but the retirees are thinking about it, and hopefully we'll all get to be one someday. And it's a big change.
And they were promised this, like this
They
was
were
something
promised, yeah.
that when they were recruited here. So if we think through our letters of offer, and think through what we were promised to come here, and then that not be here, and you've spent your whole life here, under the understanding that one of the perks of being here was, okay, yes, I'm going to have to take a low wage because we know that they had low wages, but I'm going to get this perk. So I just wanted to underscore that this is not something that is superfluous. This was a promise made that that is now ending.
Yeah, so imagine the events of last summer. You don't have to imagine, most people know what happened last summer. And let's say you are a faculty member in your department, and you're seeing that people at risk in your department. So you make a promise and you say, okay, I'll retire this fall, or I'll retire after this fall, and that'll save somebody's job. And you make that calculation after you go over all your finances, and you say, well, I've got this benefit that's going to cover my spouse, so I'm okay. And now you just got notice that you're not okay. Yeah. Now you're going to have a multi-$1,000 bill on your fixed income that you were not counting on. So yeah, it's not insignificant.
Okay, so this is another concession, basically, so that's what you're talking about. There's lots of things that go into this.
I would say that we've been asked a lot, and this is another ask, and it goes into the total calculation of how do we get to that stability sort of contract. And this is part of that element. Maybe a more concrete example is all of us have some kind of load calculated in your department. There's a lot of difference in the culture of how that's done, but there's this thing called the TARS report, and the magic number is 12. You have to have 12 units of something, right? And what happens is that they adjust everything but teaching so that it comes up to 12. So if last year you got 3 units because you led up your graduate program, or you were the course coordinator, or you were in charge of all the undergrad advising or whatever, right? Now, what's happening is people are being asked to teach more, and they are still asked to do that same service duty. They just get less credit for it. And we, in our effort to put all these things on the table and pursue these things that are in the contract, we want recognition for what the faculty are doing. And we want faculty to be in a space going forward that they can do their jobs and do them well. We're not being greedy. We're not asking for money that the university does not have. We're trying to make this a place that people want to stay and that students can get a really good education, and we're not hamstrung by the conditions that have been set up by all the events of this year. I know my department is at less than half of the faculty than we were at our peak. I know that your department is similar.
I wouldn't say less than half, but we're probably less than 2/3.
So there's another member of our team that has 3 faculty members, one of whom is a tenure track faculty member, and they have over 500 majors. So these are why all these issues matter in terms of, can we do a good job for our students? So if you just pick out one issue and you say, well, that seems petty to be asking for that. We haven't had the luxury of picking out one issue. They're all considered together. And when you consider all of them together, this distance education issue is one of those issues that we need as a lever to get to the stable, fair contract.
So, Rich, I've heard, and I'm going to pretend that I'm not on the negotiating team here. I'm going to take that hat off. Are we asking for raises? Like, it feels like there's, people have asked me, why you guys are asking for raises? You didn't even say, are we asking for raises? Is that what we're wanting in this contract?
Okay, that's a fair question. So going back in time, the university have said we are the only bargaining unit that didn't take concessions.
Multiple times. They've said that multiple times.
Right. So what they're not saying is that we have offered up concessions multiple times, higher than have been imposed by other employees of the university or other bargaining units have agreed to. We offered more than that. And the university rejected those because they insisted on laying off faculty and a large number of faculty. So the narrative that we won't take concessions is not true. In these negotiations that started in October, we have offered concessions in multiple proposals. You can read them for yourself. They're on the website. What we have added is what is known as trigger language. The university is in much better financial shape than they were in March. They would admit that. And what they're worried about is what kind of financial shape they will be in the future, because the pandemic has an uncertain future. We responded to that and we said, if that's true, then we will not ask for a raise.
So we'll just freeze. We'll just be on a wage freeze.
Right. But if it's not true, and in fact, the university continues to do better, then we want a raise, a modest raise. So that protects the university in the case of a calamity, that things get much worse. But it also protects the bargaining unit in case that doesn't happen. And we haven't gotten a response, literally no response to that idea.
Right. So there's, and I should know this off the top of my head, but there's no trigger language in their proposals, right? It's just, you're gonna take this cut for 1 year, because they're only wanting a contract for a year and a half.
Well, it's a year and a
Is that
half. So
correct?
for a calendar year, whenever we settle this, a calendar year, we would have a concession on our wages between 0 and 12%, depending on how much money you
Okay.
make. And then any time that's left in the contract would snap back to our current wages. That's the most current proposal. But their first proposal was that if they had wage concessions imposed on non-bargaining unit employees, that we would have to take those same concessions. But that's not on the table anymore.
Okay, so they're wanting us to take the cut, then they're snapping it back, but they're wanting to have a very short contract. Is that, I mean, that feels troublesome to me.
Proposing a 1.5 year term of the contract. And so that means that if we settled that today, we would be back at the table in about 6 months. And going back to my point about stability, that I think the bargaining unit and the university really needs, that doesn't provide that. It also doesn't provide the sort of environment that the administration needs for their strategic planning. So they are making plans for how to change this university. And if everybody is sort of biting their nails for a year and a half, just waiting for the next contract negotiations, I don't think we can get there.
So Rich, is it fair to say, the way that I'm trying to think about this, both as a member of the negotiating team and as just a member of the chapter, is all these things that you're talking about, whether it's distance learning, whether it's wage concessions, whether it's healthcare, whether it's Article 15, whether it's, what you're basically saying is everything goes into this pot because we have to give this kind of package type of thing. And it's not like we're necessarily trying to absolutely get X amount of money for, let's say, Article 20. But we are trying to put it in the pot to show the exhaustive list of ways that, number one, we've been at this point really, really overtaxed. And number two, demonstrate the ways in which the contract thus far hasn't been followed, as I'm understanding it. I mean, the contract hasn't been followed if we're supposed to be getting additional wages for these distance learning courses. So it's not necessarily, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we need this money or that we think we really, really, really have earned this money. We've earned it, yes, but we really want to demonstrate the totality of all that we're doing in order to say, look, the thing that makes us be able to do our thing, which is I think what we said last time we had this interview, the thing that makes us be able to do our thing is to be valued, is to have security, is to have stability, is to get what we've earned and what we deserve. And let's look at all the chips to make us the best contract possible that is fair for both of us and the university community.
Yes. So if I was going to sum it up, I would say to the administration, you're asking too much from faculty, and you cannot expect what you expect from faculty forever. And so please give some recognition for what you are asking. And please recognize that that's not going to get you the university that you want to have.
I mean, I think it's also fair to say that we've heard of a number of people that are on the job market. We've heard of a number of people from our esteemed faculty that are wanting to jump ship. This is a really scary time to not have stability. We need the stability. We need a decent contract in order to not only attract people, but to keep people.
Yeah, that's what you and I are working really hard to do, is to make the terms and conditions of employment livable.
All right, so one last question from me, and then I'll let you go or add anything you want. Do you, and you already said this, but I want to highlight it again. Do you think that we're being greedy? I mean, really, genuinely, not just as the chief negotiator. Take that off. You're the biologist now.
I don't think we're being greedy. If you saw today in the board's actions, when they want to do something, they can find money to do it. And the things that we are asking for are not things that cost a lot of money. And if they don't want to give us money and they're willing to give us better terms and conditions of employment, we will listen to that. I'm not making a commitment about giving anything up, but
But that's how negotiations are, right?
yeah,
Like, you're supposed to be, okay, well, like we said at the beginning, what we thought it would be was, we'll give you this,
yeah.
well, we'll give up this, whatever those things are.
So I don't think you can reasonably ask of the faculty, we're going to impose conditions that essentially get rid of tenure. We're going to impose conditions that say that we can release you whenever we want for any reason that we want. We're going to pay you less. We're going to go back on things that are in the contract now. We're going to renege on promises that we made to our retirees. And we're going to ask you to work harder. I don't think that's a fair ask. And I don't think we are being greedy for saying you can't ask for all those things.
And I lied, one more question. Do you care about the health of the university, and do you think your colleagues care about the health of the university?
Yeah, I think the time of people's lives that they have put into this university is best represented by their faculty. And if you look at the turnover of faculty and the turnover of administrators, I'm not saying administrators don't care about the university, but faculty are voting with their feet. And the people who are here have centuries of experience and dedication to this university. And they are deeply concerned about the future of this university. And there's not just one way to solve the problems we are facing. You have to listen to the faculty and their concerns. And you have to give them a decent place to work. And that's what we're working toward.
Thank you. Rich, anything else you wanna add before I let you go and get on with your night?
I think our team is really excellent and really dedicated. And we are trying hard to listen to our buff members, those that agree with us and those that disagree with us. Feel free to contact us. We will listen to you, and we will try to move in a way that takes into account your concerns.
That's what we're doing right now, really. I mean,
Yeah.
this was literally sparked by people who were having some concerns that we're just trying to address openly and authentically.
Yes.
Rich, thank you so much.
Thank you, Toni.
Apologize to your wife for me taking up your time again.
No problem at all. She's used to it.
All right,
And
I'll talk to you
apologize to your
soon.
wife for taking up your
Oh,
time.
she actually likes it, I think. She's like, great, just stay upstairs. You're in the basement, I'm
I'm
in
in the
my office.
basement. Yeah.
Right. None of us are allowed on the first floor.
Yeah,
It's like, that's just, we're not allowed there.
the dog has better privileges than I do.
Right. All right, thanks, Rich. Have a good night.
Thanks.